Michael, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Emma.
Can you share a time when you changed a long-held belief and what influenced that change?
Yes, I can clearly remember a particular time. It goes back a long way, like 70 years, but I was a student at LSE, 1953, 54, about that time. And I was a law student, and I then thought, as most people in this country thought, that capital punishment was a perfectly proper sanction for murder. Most people who committed murder were executed unless they were reprieved for some special reason. And I debated this issue, I think, at least twice in the Students' Union, moving the motion that we retain capital punishment. Now, on one of the occasions, the opposition, the other side, was supported by a member of parliament called Sidney Silverman, who had then been campaigning for the abolition of capital punishment and was a very persuasive advocate for the cause. And so, in the course of the debate, I had to listen carefully to his arguments and try to destroy them or meet them and put across my own in favor of capital punishment. But after the debate, I remember reflecting on it all and realizing that my arguments were not as good as his arguments. And so I changed my mind on that. And ever since, I have been opposed to capital punishment. And in fact, we then in this country abolished it about 10 years later, 1965. And now, as you know, it is no longer a punishment in this country.
Are there any beliefs you feel you will never abandon and why?
Well, I think those beliefs I think I would not abandon are what I could broadly describe as my Christian beliefs. I was brought up as a Christian at school. I've been living in a country whose laws, whose morals, whose ethics have all been based upon Christian concepts of forgiveness and love, not wishing to harm other people, and so on. And it is impossible then for me now to go back on that. It's part of me. Some people say, well, unless you believe in the resurrection or you believe in this, that, or the other of the theology, then you're not a Christian. But I don't accept that. I think, as a historian called Trevor Roper once said, you leave all that sort of thing to the bishops to worry about. You just get on with living what is a Christian life. And so I strongly believe that in a Christian culture, which has been here in this country for 1,500 years, every community has been centered around the local parish church and the local priest. People still go to church for baptism, for marriages, for funerals. It's the place they go to when they're in distress or a country gets seriously worried about some crisis. You cannot escape it. So those beliefs I will not abandon.
And is it specifically Christian values that you won't abandon, or is it more beliefs about the Christian religion, for instance?
I think I'm a bit hazy on some of that. I certainly believe that there was a person called Christ, that he lived on this earth, and he did remarkable things in persuading people to abandon the concepts that went before of strict Jewish tenets and established what we would describe as a Christian approach to life. So that is fact. I would believe in that. As to whether you believe in all the other aspects of what the Bible tells you, I reserve my position. Some things I think I will accept, maybe others I don't. But what is more important to me is really the whole concept of the culture and the morals and the ethics that flow from Christianity, which I think are inescapable.
What does it mean to disagree well?
Of course, you can disagree well. I certainly think that. I think you can have very good arguments and discussions rationally and in good temper with anyone. But I think there are perhaps a number of precepts or tenets which you should bear in mind in any argument that you have with somebody. The first thing perhaps is to respect the other person as a person and not to adopt any arguments which are aimed at the person rather than at what he's saying or what he's trying to get across or what his opinions are. Then I think in your own arguments, you should show respect for his opinions and that you understand what his opinions are so that he should believe that he is getting his point of view across to you. Then I think you should also try to define, if you can, at an early stage, what the point is in dispute, because so many arguments proceed when people are really arguing from different premises. So it's as well to try to clarify what is the real issue on which you are divided. Then you should put your own points, of course, and I suggest clearly and, more important, succinctly. Brevity, I think, is very important. Cut out extraneous points that don't really add to the argument. Don't dress it up with frills. Just make the simple point as clearly as you can. And then I think it's helpful to try to articulate, if you can, any consensus that you've reached, so as to try and take out of the debate things on which you are basically agreed, so you needn't say any more about that. And then, of course, finally, what's left unresolved or in dispute, you can summarize and then go away agreeing to differ with a sort of handshake or whatever is appropriate in the situation. So in that way, I think an argument can be conducted in a thoroughly sensible, civilized, and profitable way.
My final question for you is, how can schools and universities promote good disagreement?
I have no doubt that schools should devote resources and time and effort to the importance of public speaking and discussion. They should encourage people to have debates. Debates can take many forms. There's the hat debate, in which you can put various topics in a hat and you draw one out and give it to someone. He's got 1 minute to prepare, and then perhaps 3 or 4 minutes that he must speak on that topic, spontaneous. You can have debates, obviously, which are formal and set up, and everyone prepares for their particular side of the debate. But you can also have debates where people are required to prepare both sides of the argument. And then when the debate is just about to begin, you do a toss of the coin or something, and that decides which side you have to take. But they have prepared both sides, so they're ready to argue either point of view. All that, I think, is good. And also to be able to articulate and to project your voice, I think, is important. And that you can do, of course, particularly through amateur dramatics, putting people in plays where they have to perform and make sure their voice is heard at the back of the hall. This is not new, because in medieval times, there was a subject called rhetoric that was a part of the established curriculum for teaching. And rhetoric is exactly the same thing. Effective communication, use of grammar, logic, being able to express yourself well, clearly, and to be able to persuade others. And I think if that's been neglected in more modern times, schools and universities should certainly make more of it than perhaps they do.